You are listening to the AOTA podcast. Here is your host, Matt Brandenburg.
All right, today we are joined by Tasha Holmes and Lauren Wlazelek. Thank you both for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thanks so much for having us.
I've been looking forward to this conversation and to learning a little bit about the AOTA Accredited Fellowship Program. Lauren, you previously coordinated that program and are a current program mentor. Tasha, you're the current AOTA Accredited Fellowship Program manager. What motivated you both to kind of become involved with this program?
Go ahead, Tasha.
So I coordinate the overall day-to-day functions for the accredited programs. It is a national program, so I make sure that everything's running to work programs through the accreditation process and also support programs who are already accredited. And so for me, with my background as an occupational therapist, when this position became available, I applied because I really do believe in education for our occupational therapy practitioners. And it really fit my skill set well.
That's wonderful. It's a great application of sharing your skills to give back to the profession. And Lauren, how about you? What motivated you to start your involvement with the program?
So I come from a background where I was able to participate in a fellowship, and then I moved into a situation where I was able to help create one, and now I mentor at another one. So I have this trifecta perception on them. And so I'll dive a little bit into my backstory. So in graduate school, I was able to work as a hand therapy aide, which really stirred my passion for hand therapy. But then right after school, I worked in multiple physical disability settings. So I worked acute care, acute rehab, general outpatient. But I always had this interest in hands. So whenever there was a hand question or a hand case, I was the go-to. So about 3 years out of school, I was just in a place in life where I was looking for more. I wanted more knowledge. I missed that being in school, missed that learning. I just wanted more. And I finally felt like I was able to grasp being an OT, which I think takes a year or two out of school to really just figure out how to interact with patients and be sound and just being an OT. And then this was about 2017, and I was exploring kind of what options were out there. And at the time, there were only 2 accredited AOTA hand therapy fellowships, one which was at the University of Michigan and one was at Stanford. And I applied to both of them, and luckily I was very excited to become Stanford's 3rd fellow. And it was still a relatively new fellowship program when I was there. And the program grew and evolved so much during my time there. But it definitely changed me for the better, which obviously made me want to give back. Once I completed my fellowship, I had the opportunity to stay in the Bay Area and work at a company called Agile PT. So they have a large PT orthopedic residency program and a manual fellowship program. And so most of the clinicians working there were residency or fellowship trained. And it was something that the company very much valued. That was a high item for them. And there had been a hand therapy fellowship in the works. And then COVID happened, which then offered a bit more time to these non-patient care centered projects. So along with an awesome team, we were able to help get that big application through, and I was able to be on board and see the program through the entire accreditation process, which was such an amazing experience to then see a fellow through. After that, I knew I was set and I wanted to be able to be involved in fellowships ongoing.
Thank you both so much for sharing some of your motivations and experiences with these programs. It still is a relatively young or new program, especially with, an interruption during COVID, where I'm sure so much kind of pivoting and problem solving and creativity was needed to keep the programs going. But I can definitely hear how these programs can help hone your skills and grow your skills and increase your scope and impact. Why would you both say it's important for occupational therapy professionals to connect and be a part of programs like this one?
So the fellowship programs from the AOTA, it provides advanced training for occupational therapists during any stage of their career. So it's great for new grads. As Lauren said before, if as a new graduate, you're learning more about OT, you may be interested in going to a specialty. So an AOTA accredited fellowship program allows you to choose a specialty, learn about that specialty. Most programs are about 11 to 13 months. So you're really focused on that particular specialization. At the end of your fellowship term, you can decide, is this a good fit for me? Or you always have the option of pursuing fellowship in another specialized area. So it's a really great way to try specializations on for size to see what's a good fit, but also to really spend time ingrained in that particular specialty. You get access to mentors, you have a curriculum. So it really is a nice continuation of the learning journey from leaving your occupational therapy program, getting your license, and then continuing your learning journey in a fellowship program. It's also great for experienced occupational therapists who are looking for a change of specialty. So there are several different areas that are very difficult to break into, such as mental health or hand therapy. This does give you, some ability to, work in a particular specialty area that's hard to break into. There are fellows who, when they're finished their fellowship programs, they are offered employment, maybe at that particular facility, or maybe they go to another facility and they're able to work in that specialty area because they do have that solid experience in that particular area.
Coming from a hand therapy perspective, I can speak that it is a little bit more challenging to break into. Often clinicians, you might be working at a standalone clinic. You're not having on-site mentorship. Sometimes you're unable to even get a job without having that certification of the CHT, which stands for Certified Hand Therapist. So it can leave one questioning, how do I become a CHT without experience? And how do I get hired with, not having this experience? So hand therapy fellowships are so important as they provide some of this necessary required hours that you need to sit for the board exam. So you need 4,000 direct contact hours with patients. And then it's also a knowledge, knowing some of the material, and that is included in the fellowship lecture series. So hand therapy fellowships aren't necessarily for new grads. In fact, it's almost encouraged that you have a little bit of experience and that you have, you're able to be confident treating patients and have some outpatient experience first. So I've had several encounters with hand therapy fellows that have had 10 plus years experience and were looking for this change. So I think these fellowship programs are just essential to have for the development of OTs that maybe are looking to become CHTs. And, to have these programs, we need clinicians that are eager to mentor as well.
Thank you both so much. Tasha, thank you for kind of describing what a fellowship program is and hearing how important it can be for becoming a CHT or receiving that certification. Really emphasizes the importance that these types of programs exist. I want to talk a little bit more in depth, specifically about AOTA accredited fellowship programs. What really makes the AOTA program unique?
So for an AOTA accredited fellowship program, once these programs are accredited, it shows that they've gone through a really rigorous process in order to become accredited. And with that rigorous process, they've demonstrated that financially, they're able to sustain their program. They have sufficient staff who are specialists in that particular area that the program is accredited for. They're also showing that they have put together a curriculum. So the fellow is going to learn all of the things that they need to know in order to be proficient in that particular specialty. And that's what's going to set us apart from other fellowship programs, because we are designed that So when someone sees that it's an AOTA accredited fellowship program, they know that they are getting a high level of quality. And as occupational therapists, they're learning the occupational therapy applications in that particular specialty area.
That's awesome. It really sounds like a collaboration between AOTA and the site. And not so much just like, okay, we're sending people here and who knows what goes on.
Absolutely. And we provide supports to our accredited programs. We always want to set everyone up for success. And so we provide supports for them all through the accreditation process and also while they are accredited. Because when we're looking at the full scope of, supporting these programs, we want to make sure that the fellows are receiving the information that they need to be successful and to provide the best quality of services for their clients. But we also want to make sure that the programs receive the support that they need so that way they're successful and they're able to provide the best educational quality for their fellows.
I love that. A mutualistic benefit, which is tough to come by, but sounds like such a lovely goal of this program. Lauren, was there anything you wanted to add about what makes the AOTA program unique?
The 350 mentor hours, I think, is something very unique that other maybe non-accredited fellowships might not have. So those 350 hours, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of hours. And I've been on both ends making sure hours are captured. But those hours offer so many great opportunities with one-on-one case study review, one-on-one treatment time. And so they're just ever so valuable. And I actually mentor for ASHT, which is the American Society for Hand Therapy. And I spend some time on calls with new grads working in a hand therapy setting that are doing a type of fellowship, it not necessarily an AOTA accredited one, but some sort of mentoring. And it's just, you can tell it's not the same impact not having that 350 hours, which really just creates this environment of complete immersion. So I think that's something so special, and the AOTA does such a good job with holding that high standard.
I love that. And so it's 350 hours that the fellow spends in direct mentorship with a mentor, or how is that kind of 350 hours structured?
Each fellow will receive at least 1,400 program hours. And within those 1,400 program hours, 350 of those hours are mentored hours. So we make sure that the fellowship programs are set up so they're able to support providing one-to-one services for those fellows, in addition to providing other foundational knowledge that they may need as they begin their specialized, work as a fellow. But because this is advanced training, we're making sure that everything, it's different than an internship where you're learning entry-level skills and you're learning some of those basic foundational skills. We're making sure that in those 1,400 program hours, that not only are they, they might review some of the foundational information, but this is really advanced training. And part of that advanced training is one-to-one mentorship with a specialist who can answer questions, where you can have collaborative conversations, where you're really understanding the granular aspects of that particular specialization versus just an overview entry-level information that you would get if you were in an internship. And so we do have the hours segmented out to make sure that there's a minimal amount of hours given for one-to-one collaboration between the fellow and the occupational therapist in that specialty, and that they're also receiving a minimal amount of hours where they're learning other information about that particular specialty. It also, although we do have the minimal hours that has to be one-to-one with an occupational therapist, that doesn't mean that there can't be other mentors in the program who provide other hours outside of that required amount for one-to-one with the OT. So it could certainly be with physical therapist or speech therapist or doctors, other specialists that will provide that interprofessional collaboration and information that helps support how that OT will practice in that specialty.
And thank you for that clarification. I think I'm understanding, the requirements and how robust a fellowship is. How else would you describe, Lauren, the difference between a fellowship and an internship?
For me, there's two key words that come to mind for defining a fellowship, and they would be mentorship and immersion. So I'm fortunate that I've had this unique learning experience in which I was able to be mentored. And it was done in such a way where there isn't a right or wrong. Mentoring is more of a, let's learn this together. Let's see where this goes, creating a safe, collaborative environment, which is just such a great learning experience, not only for the fellow, but for the mentor as well. So the word immersion just entails all of that. During my fellowship experience, it wasn't like you were sent off and here's your assignment, come back tomorrow, which is what I think of more in an internship setting. It was, we're right here, right now, we're on the spot. Again, this safe learning environment. And it was just a 24/7 learning process. So I think that's what really separates the fellowship from an internship.
And I have to ask for our listeners, are AOTA accredited fellowships, are these paid programs, or how does kind of reimbursement and salary work while completing a fellowship?
Yes. So AOTA accredited programs, it's a great way to earn while you learn. That's another big difference between the fellowship program and internships, where internships, that is part of the school curriculum prior to graduation, and you're not earning money for doing that. But in a fellowship program, this is post-professional. So this means you do have a license, you are a licensed occupational therapist, and you are paid during the time that you are in the fellowship program. Depending on the program, the amount of payment and the type of benefits will vary. So whenever someone applies to a program, it's always encouraged for them to look at what the compensation looks like and what the benefits look like for each program. But they are certainly paid opportunities for occupational therapists to learn a specialty.
Okay, absolutely. I like that turn of phrase, to earn while you learn. That's a good way to phrase it. These sound like great programs. Lauren, I like how you highlighted immersion. I think if anyone's ever learned a language, immersion is the only way to go. And I think as practitioners, we're constantly trying to evolve our understanding and communication of the language of occupational therapy, and how to practice at the top of our license. What are some ways that each of you see an AOTA accredited fellowship program helping either an early career OT or more experienced OT to grow and develop?
And early career OT, I will certainly say I graduated from OT school 20 years ago, so I predate the fellowship programs. And I know that when I got out of school, I was really looking for jobs that were going to provide me with the experience and support that I needed for being an OT. And the AOTA accredited fellowship programs would have been something that would have been perfect for me, because that's exactly what I was looking for. I was fortunate to find a job where I did get mentoring. I was able to learn a specialty, but that was not the first job that I found. So some of that was trial and error. It's nice for someone who is in their early career, and if they think that they want to go into a certain specialty, by choosing an AOTA accredited program, they know what they're going to get when they get there. They're going to learn that particular specialty. They're not going to have to guess what type of experience they're going to have when they show up the first day. So it's certainly helpful for learning those skills and that specialty the area as a new OT, but also as a more experienced OT. I've been a licensed OT for 20 years. And so I've worked in lots of different settings with lots of different populations. And that seems to be the story for a lot of OTs. When I first wanted to break into pediatrics, it was a little bit difficult for me. I was looking to see, well, where's going to be the best place where not only can I practice and they'll take me without experience, but they'll also mentor me and help me gain my experience. And so even as an experienced OT, if you do decide that you want to switch into another area, it can be a little cumbersome to figure out where you're going to get that specialty support.
I can speak again specifically on behalf of the hand community, which may be a tougher area to transition into, again, because it's hard to get a job if you're not a CHT. And how do you become a CHT if you're not given the opportunity to gain experience and knowledge? So those CHT requirements include 4,000 hours. And so, right, how are you getting them if you can't get a job? So, in many hand therapy clinics, you might only have one hand therapist and you might be there with many PT counterparts. So again, really challenging just to get a knowledge base going in order to grow as a clinician. So as humans, we don't know what we don't know. How do you know what you're doing? Is it the most appropriate? Is it the best? If you're not getting any mentorship or you're surrounded by colleagues that you can learn and grow with. So a hand therapy fellowship can be used for early graduates or for someone making this career switch. Most often, usually with hand therapy, someone's coming from like the acute rehab or acute care setting or outpatient. And again, just like looking to specialize more, making that change in their career. And it's just a great way for them to be able to pivot. And I will say that I've had the opportunity, I've encountered 2 experiences working with a fellow that had been practicing for over 10 years. And they brought such a refreshing new perspective to the clinic. They were looking at everything through a much different lens, and we all learned and grew from it. So again, I think I can't speak highly enough for these opportunities for growth for everyone.
And you touch on a really interesting point there, Lauren. I think we've discussed the plethora of ways that these programs can really benefit a fellow. What are some of the perks or benefits of being a recognized or an accredited fellowship program? You mentioned that sometimes a fellow can come in and share all this knowledge, but in what other ways does it benefit kind of these organizations or clinics or universities that are accredited?
One of the ways that it is beneficial for healthcare institutions is being able to attract top talent. So you know that when you are accepting a fellow, you have someone who is excited about that particular specialty, and you're able to work with them in your facility, teaching them and providing experiences for them in that particular specialty. And at the end of that fellowship program, there have been several healthcare institutions that have found that fellow is really a great fit for their institution. And so they've already been there for a year. They've built relationships with the other, therapists that are on staff. They know the company's policies and procedures. They've already seen how this particular fellow interacts with the clients. And so it's a really nice transition to have someone who has excelled in their fellowship program transition seamlessly into a full-time employment position at that particular facility. So that works really nice for both the fellow and also for the institution. It also allows the healthcare institution to provide leadership positions. Sometimes as OTs, we're really looking to take on some additional leadership positions. There may not be that opportunity, but a fellowship program provides the opportunities for occupational therapists to take on a leadership position, either as the fellowship coordinator, as a primary mentor, as someone who maybe even before the program becomes accredited, helping to gather the information and work on putting together the application and participating in the site visit during the accreditation process. So it does provide non-clinical leadership opportunities for the staff that's already there. Also on our end from the AOTA, we also offer exclusive discounts for accredited programs. We have the full list on our fellowship website, which I do believe that'll be available at the end of this podcast, but it is aota.org/fellowship. And we have a full list of AOTA discounts that we provide for accredited programs.
I love a good discount, and I absolutely will make sure that link is available in our episode description, Tasha. So there's so many benefits to a fellow, a member who's a part of this program, also the healthcare institutions that are accredited fellowship programs. Can you both take us through your own personal experience? How did being a fellow really impact your career path?
For myself, since I predate the fellowship programs, as I said before, it really was a struggle for me to find all of the things that the fellowship program offers in employment. I did get lucky in my second job that I did find a supportive environment, but that's because I sought out a teaching hospital. And I will say many of the healthcare organizations that we have as accredited programs are teaching facilities. So they were already, before the fellowship program existed, they were already wanting to provide that advanced level education. And we have given them a spot to do so.
That's awesome, Tasha. And I just got to highlight that and thank you for your work in this program, because it took a lot of legwork on your own for your own career path to find that environment that was the best fit for you. And that was a teaching institution. And now you're making it so much easier for people who want the same thing in their career to be able to find and to access. And I just want to thank you, because I think that's a wonderful way to give back to the profession and continue to grow OT as a whole. Lauren, so how did being a fellow and pursuing a fellowship really impact your own career path?
Similar to Tasha, I can relate to, wanting to be mentored, wanting to learn, wanting to be at the best of your game. And I was very fortunate out of the gate, right out of school. I have had amazing mentors every step of the way. So I feel so grateful, which probably inspires me to want to continue to give back to the community and help further creating more great OTs out there that also will in turn want to give back. I can confidently say that completing an AOTA fellowship 100% changed my career path and for the better. I had opportunities that I did not even know were possible, and they were at my fingertips. It really changed things in such an exciting way. One thing being able to pass the CHT exam, which I don't know that I would have, had the support in so many ways, the mentors, being able to ask questions, even just them being cheerleaders, like, oh, yes, you got it, or talking to previous fellows, and just getting help from everyone in the community, which was just a huge milestone. It also changed the way I look at things. And now I have so much more of an open mind throughout the whole process of providing care, not only with just my patients, but also with the fellows, with the students, with my colleagues. I have just grown so much. Other opportunities that have come from it as well is just keeping great relationships. So I had amazing mentors while I was at Stanford, and now I'm asked to guest lecture at their hand therapy fellowship on an annual basis. Very much there was a lot of involvement with the California hand therapy community, and I've also maintained great relationships there that I was involved as a fellow, and now I continue to be involved in different aspects and speaking at their conference. So, even though I've now moved back and I'm in New York City now, I feel this connection to people all over the country. And it's opened so many doors that I just never even saw. So really, really nice things.
That's amazing. I'm happy to hear that so many pathways were opened and accessible to you through these accredited fellowships. What recommendations would you each give to students or practitioners who may be considering whether or not to pursue or apply for a fellowship?
My recommendation would be to look and just get a good idea of the types of fellowships that are available before graduation. Because the accreditation process is so rigorous, it could take 1 to 2 years for a program to be accredited. So it's certainly possible that on our website, you may see a program that you're interested in and they are in the applicant status currently. And then by the time you graduate and you've passed the boards and you've gotten licensed, they are actually either in their candidacy or they're actually accredited. So any of the programs who are in candidacy status or they're accredited, they are able to accept fellows. So it's always nice to take a look at all of the programs and all their statuses, even if it's applicants, and just have your sights set on this is the program that I'd like to apply for. Also, each program has a different period for when they have applications open and a different period for when their programs start. So looking at it before graduation is a really good way to judge. Maybe you might want to move your exam up a month earlier, so that way you're able to apply to the program. Programs can accept fellows who have not passed the exam yet, the NBCOT exam yet, and that could be contingent upon them passing the exam and becoming licensed. So, you may decide, maybe I'll move it up a month early just to give myself a little bit of wiggle room in case the outcome is not what I expected. So I'm able to still enter the fellowship on time. So I always just encourage, so the earlier the better. Just, start doing your fact finding and taking a look at the information. So that way you can lay out a timeline for yourself as to what you need to do to meet all of the qualifications before entering the program. And I also encourage, that's for, new grads or people who haven't graduated yet. But for OTs who are looking to change into a specialty, I would certainly say look at it at any period of time. Certainly don't feel like, I need to stay in this current place for one more year before I take a look at fellowships. Earlier is better. Take a look and decide, plan out your timeline so that way you can make sure you're meeting all of the deadlines and the qualifications for the program.
I love that. Those are wonderful recommendations. Very helpful to our listeners, students, practitioners alike. What about from you, Laura? Are there additional recommendations you'd like to give to potential fellows?
Yes. Other than, of course, yes, do it. Go for it. I think one recommendation is to explore what fellowships have to offer at the AOTA conference. So I know that a lot of times students are able to go. If you, or new grads, there's a lot of them there. Explore. So last year I actually volunteered at a booth that kind of highlighted fellowships, and a lot of people came up asking great questions about where they're located, what practice areas, are they available for quotas? Again, really great questions, which kind of developed some motion and traction. And it was nice for me to be able to be there and to advocate the benefit for them. So I think if you are at an AOTA conference or event, I think that's one really, really awesome way to explore. There's also some short courses. So I went to one last year that was super helpful. I think it was put on by Creighton University, and they did such a phenomenal job with explaining their program. They gave a perspective from the fellowship. So again, taking advantage of when you're at these AOTA events and opportunities just to kind of further explore and reach out. So if there's one on the list, if you're searching online and you see one that's of interest, feel free, reach out, email the coordinator. We're always happy to hear from people that are interested in participating. So I think just getting more information about it. I know that it can feel overwhelming or scary, or you might not think that you're qualified, but I think just taking that step, again, it can be so powerful. So it's definitely something worth looking into.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for those recommendations as well. I think I'm starting to get a deeper understanding of what all the fellowship entails and how this program is structured to encourage successful outcomes. What additional supports and resources are provided to fellows throughout the program?
So during the program, because the programs do go through the accreditation process, the structure that's been accredited for that particular program should provide all of the resources and supports that fellow needs for learning that specialty. However, we do have an email address, fellowship@aota.org, where fellows or anyone from a fellowship program can reach out to us at any time. And we're happy to provide whatever supports that they may feel like they're missing in terms of procedural things. So policies or procedures. We also have our websites. Our websites are a really great place to go and find information as well. We also allow for volunteers. So we actually welcome volunteers for the fellowship program. We do have fellowship coordinators that are part of our roster of fellowship reviewers. You do have to have, we do have criteria for the amount of experience that you have to be on the roster of fellowship reviewers, but it's a great way to volunteer, but also learn the ins and outs of the accreditation process. And sometimes that allows for someone to go back to their program and provide even more supports for the fellows or more resources based on being a volunteer and assisting other programs through the accreditation process. We also have Commune OT, which is a great place for fellowship coordinators, fellows to, share information. So we're always open to taking suggestions as well, too, of what we can do on our end as part of the AOTA. For the fellowship programs in the specialty, in those specialty areas, those programs really do provide a robust level of experiences and resources and supports for the fellows.
I love that. Lauren, in your experience, what resources did you find to be most beneficial?
So Tasha did a great job of highlighting all of everything that's available to you. And there's an abundance. So you're never feeling alone. But on a more familial level, I would describe it as like having 24/7 tech support. So you have this amazing cohort of mentors. And I think they just have this kind of open door policy that they're there for you, which is just such a nice feeling. It's positive. It's uplifting. It's really maximizing your learning experience. So I think, yes, there's so many amazing resources out there, but I do think it's the village that creates this nice, community for you, big or small, because it really does take a village to help graduate these fellows and make sure that they're having an amazing experience.
That's wonderful. I love the emphasis on collaboration and community and functioning as a part of a team or a village, as you say, Lauren. Those skills are just so key to quality occupational therapy practice. And I think fellowships are such an interesting opportunity to grow clinical reasoning and other aspects of professionalism as well. How would you say that fellowships can impact those factors of clinical reasoning and professional practice?
As Lauren was saying, with being immersed in a specialized practice, it really does allow someone to really understand a specialty and make clinical decisions based on understanding that specialty, but also making decisions in a collaborative way with other professionals who understand that specialty. That's really invaluable. And it's also really helpful when someone's going to pursue a certification. So any fellow that completes an AOTA accredited program is eligible for taking the AOTA advanced certification exams in 2 years versus 3 years, as long as they meet all of the other requirements. And so with that, it allows them to demonstrate the knowledge and the transfer of knowledge that they've learned by obtaining those specialty certifications, which allows outward facing for people who may be looking for additional membership or mentorship. They might be able to step into that position and now become the mentors after learning that particular specialization.
I love that. It can turn into a cycle of fellowship and best practice.
Just like Tasha said, I've been fortunate enough that I've gotten to experience it, that I have watched mentees now become mentors. And it's such a cool thing to watch and see the learning and the growing. And I can speak that when I was a fellow, I was a complete sponge, just absorbing absolutely everything. And I think one of the highlights is getting to learn from different people. So I rotated through mentors. So it's an experience where you never feel like you're copying or mimicking someone, and you're not becoming a cookie cutter version of someone else like you might feel more so when you're a student. So I got to learn from different people with very different backgrounds and very different perspectives. And I think that's so valuable because it kind of really helps you create your own unique clinical reasoning and your own rationale for things. And again, this fellowship does such a good job of creating an environment that's safe and you're never feeling judged if something might not be the best way, when we're approaching it in a way where we're all learning together of, oh, this is interesting. Where are you coming from? Let's talk through this. Let's further explore this. So I think that's just really something to keep in mind. If you're interested in doing a fellowship and you're wondering kind of what environment it is like, or you're maybe not interested in feeling like a student, I would encourage you, to chat with someone or get more info, because I think it really sets up this unique environment where you feel like you are a clinician, you're licensed, you're practicing, but then again, you're getting to really just grow. So again, really cool experience.
Yeah, that growth sounds like it'd be, very impactful, very memorable while going through a fellowship program. Do either of you have, a case study or personal example of when you really experienced that growth, or saw someone experience that growth, that you'd like to share with us today?
I will say I have had several fellows come up to me and tell me how much they're enjoying their fellowship programs. So, and that they are learning a lot. But in terms of, a specific case, Lauren might have one.
I know. I have so many. Again, I've gotten to be on both ends. I can speak for myself, kind of like an aha moment. It's kind of funny and it seems really insignificant, but it was somehow so powerful. So, I did my fellowship in a hand clinic. And so, many of you, if you're familiar, OTs with OT practice at this point, there's a modality that we use called paraffin. And it's this like nice warm wax that everyone loves on their hands. It feels good. Sometimes you get it at a spa with a manicure. So it was a custom that people were dipping to warm up. And then we got going with our therapy, manual, Therax, such, so on and so forth. And so during my fellowship, we had lunch from 12 to 1, and then 1 o'clock, it was like a parade of people coming in to get dipped. And I think I was like running late from something. I didn't quite have lunch. I needed a moment. And so I had my patient, like, she loved getting dipped, her hand dipped. And so I allowed her to get her hand dipped by the aides, even though she didn't really need her hand dipped because she was an elbow patient. So my mentor comes up to me and says, "Why are we dipping her hand?" She has a broken elbow, what are we doing with the hand? And I said, I'm so sorry. I was just running late and I just needed a minute. And she said, "That's fine." And I was kind of expecting her to be like, "What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that." And it wasn't. She said, "No, that's fine. As long as you know why you are doing something." And it's such an insignificant thing, but it stands out in my mind as something so powerful, because in that moment I was like, you could be doing this, you could be doing that, but why are you doing it? I'm not doing it because my colleague's doing it. I'm doing something because this is what I'm trying to address for this specific patient. So I think that was just one of those moments that without the mentorship and without being kind of put on the spot and questioned, why are we doing things, I might not have gotten. So I've really taken that, and I do a lot of self-reflection in my own practice, and I encourage it with my current students, current fellows, to really reflect, is that the best use of my time with that patient? Am I giving them the best treatment? So that was just one moment that really, I think, defined me. And sometimes these moments are so insignificant, but they have such power. So that was one from me as a fellow. But as being a mentor, I think I have two, actually. One, I was able to watch a mentee then grow into a fellowship coordinator position, which was something so special to see. So that's always a really good feeling. And then secondly, I had another fellow that I was able to mentor who had a special love for animals. And in her work previously in the acute care setting, she worked a lot with therapy dogs. And she was just someone who loved any kind of pet, had lots of pets. She had lots of guinea pigs and dogs, and she just loved animals, but had a therapy dog and worked with the therapy dog while being an OT. And she was able to really help people turn therapy into a meaningful occupation with utilizing some of the pet techniques, which were just so fascinating. And I think none of the seasoned hand therapists had ever even thought of using those. So I just thought, again, some of these really cool collaborative opportunities that have created such benefit for patients, again, they're just so invaluable.
Those are such wonderful examples. Thank you for sharing that. I love how, these programs, while they are structured and they provide so many supports and resources, they also seem like they are person first. They're highlighting the strengths of the fellow with a passion for animals in that instance, and really emphasize a collaborative relationship between mentors and fellows. I wanted to ask you both how you think fellowships can collaborate with universities, or even how the potential integration of fellowship preparation into academic curriculum could benefit those universities as well as students and future practitioners.
That's a great question. So we do have several accredited fellowship programs they're universities that are also who are attached to other healthcare institutions. And so that's a great way for fellowship programs to be integrated into universities where the fellow may be working with a university hospital. In terms of learning about fellowship programs, I've done several virtual talks with university programs to OT students who are either first or second year, just letting them know that the fellowship program exists, so that way they can start to plan out their timeline regarding what OT is going to look like for them after graduations once they're licensed OT, and allowing them to see, start to plan for what type of specialties they'd like to go in. I've heard a lot from a lot of students or new grads. They're a little worried. They don't know what they want to specialize in. And so a fellowship program is a great way to try that specialty on for size. I'm always happy if someone sends an email to fellowship at AOTA.org asking for me to virtually speak with their students, or even speaking with their faculty, or speaking with people at a healthcare organization about the fellowship program. I'm always happy to do that. But it's always really beneficial for that to be integrated into the curriculum, because a fellowship program really is on that learning continuum. So that way they're aware of what their options are after graduation, but also for different universities to understand that if they have a facility that they are affiliated with, that they are, certainly eligible to apply for the accreditation process.
I love that. Thank you, Tasha. I think that benefit is really clear, and there's so many resources available. What recommendations, or what additional recommendations, I should say, because you've already given us such great insight, would you give to students and practitioners to really help them maximize their fellowship experience?
My recommendation would be just to peruse the list on the fellowship directory on the AOTA website, to take a look to see what may be of interest to them. And then also deciding, even as a practitioner, is a fellowship program right for your particular, where you're currently working? So it could be just that, not even looking from a fellow perspective, but as an OT who wants to further support the education of the OT community, thinking about what other areas of focused, of specialization may be beneficial for the community. While we do have a diverse and quite eclectic list of fellowship programs in the directory, there's lots of OT specialties. And so we certainly don't cover them all at this point. So if there was someone who was thinking, hey, this is an area of OT that we know that, people really need, mentorship for specialization, I think that pursuing accreditation here at our healthcare institution for that particular specialization would be great for the OT community and also the clients that we serve. I would encourage them to pursue that.
I love that. Thank you, Tasha. And what about from you, Lauren?
I think when you're on the ground and actually in the fellowship, I would recommend enjoying every moment and live in that moment. So don't push things off and say, I'll figure them out tomorrow. You're in the moment, learn, absorb it, ask questions, never feel silly or that you're not good enough, because it's a completely collaborative experience. And I promise mentors are learning just as much as the fellows are. And as a mentor, it's always challenging finding new ways to teach. I'm always kept on my toes. Everyone is so different with how they learn and how they're absorbing knowledge. So I would just say for all parties, just take advantage of every learning opportunity and just say yes to everything.
I love that. I love that. Wonderful advice, wonderful recommendations. I'm really grateful we've been able to highlight some resources related to AOTA accredited fellowships, including AOTA.org/fellowships, the website there, and the fellowship at AOTA.org email address. What additional resources or even certifications related to AOTA fellowships would you recommend to our listeners?
I would just say for prospective fellows, for people who are interested, just take a look at the criteria, the minimal criteria for pursuing fellowship, which would be graduating from an accredited program and also being eligible for licensure in the state or the jurisdiction where you would like to practice. As previously said before, each program has their own qualifications that need to be met, but those are the bare minimum. So I would just encourage someone to take a look at that minimum criteria and make sure that they are working towards that.
And what about from you, Lauren? Any resources or certifications you'd like to highlight?
AOTA also has additional board certifications. They have them for a geriatric specialty, a pediatric specialty, and also the BCPR, which is the board certification for physical rehab. And so that is something, participating in the fellowship may also help contribute to your knowledge base to be able to sit for one of those exams. So I'm speaking on behalf of the BCPR, which I recently took for this summer. And so it focused on a large array of encompassing areas of between acute care, acute rehab, oncology, neuro. I just feel that if someone does a specialty fellowship after doing some like general practice, that might be a way that they have this knowledge that they can also then sit for one of these specialty certifications, which ultimately just continues to help raise the bar on our profession. So don't hesitate to look at those that are out there and available to take.
I love it. I love it. Tasha, Lauren, you've shared so much wonderful information with our listeners today. I want to thank you for being on the show, for sharing with us your knowledge, your personal experiences with AOTA accredited fellowships. We end every show with the Golden Nuggets segment. And I want to ask if you could share just one more piece of advice or one more recommendation with practitioners. What would you say?
I would have to say, as someone who's been an OT for 20 years, don't limit yourself. Your OT brain and your OT heart really translates well into all areas of OT. And also, we do have our specialized areas of OTs that are pretty well known, but I've always been a big proponent of OT in, innovative areas. So I would just say, certainly, as an OT, always look for innovation when you're practicing.
Tasha took the words out of my mouth with "don't be afraid." So that's also a sentiment. I would say if you're a small clinic and maybe you don't feel like you have the bandwidth to do a fellowship, I would still encourage you to reach out. That fellowship that you might be able to create, even though it might not be associated with a big university hospital and have some of the other opportunities, what you may have to offer might be absolutely perfect for an OT out there. So I think from that perspective of someone looking to start a fellowship, do not be afraid. There is room for all of us in this amazing OT community. And then if you are someone who's looking to specialize in a practice area and participate in one of these learning opportunities and take on being a fellow, again, don't be afraid. Go for it. I had such an amazing experience, and I hope that for everyone in this community.
Thank you. Tasha, Lauren, thank you both so much. I love your final messages, and just thank you for being so encouraging and helping us as a profession to innovate and really grow our potential.
Certainly a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to the AOTA podcast. Tune in again next time.